Have you ever stared at your DAW after importing a large session from a client, or maybe after one of your recording sessions, and feeling like it's a train wreck about to happen? Well, you're not alone, and you don't want to make the same mistakes I used to. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to get organized, to be able to stay in your creative brain, and to begin mixing like a pro. Hey, what's up guys? EJ here, and today we're going to waste no time hopping into DAW. It's Cyber Monday. That means we're all getting blown up with the must-have plugins, amazing deals, and there's probably nothing more unsexy than what I'm about to talk about now, which is how to organize and edit. And while this video won't have the flash of a magic plugin sale, what it does help with is keeping us organized working between, say, for example, our editing or technical brain and our creative brain. And when you have your sessions set up, organized, and a well-formulated plan on how you want to attack a mix, you'll be mixing like a pro in no time. So what do you say we get started and hop in the DAW? Basically, I just set up the quick time feed, and next thing I am going to do is import all of the stems. So as this is importing, I like to keep a couple things around me. Not sure if it's old school, but I am such a pen and paper person. So I have a notebook that for me documents all the mixes, bands, artists that I work with, that I can kind of thumb through and just see any notes that I took on the session. Sometimes if I work with a band that liked the project that I had worked on with, say, another artist or group, it's easy for me to kind of reference back to some of my notes from that session to recall whether it be recording techniques or mix techniques. Okay, so tracks are ready to be imported. First thing that I am going to do is just route them all to a submix. And then I'm going to route the sub. The difference between these for me is submix is where I might put any kind of processing that I want on the mix in terms of front end. If it had more processing during the recording. The 2-bus is where I have my processing, which is a combination of master bus processing and also some light mastering for the artist so that we get to a loudness that works for their references. Okay, so collectively these stems are already hitting anywhere between 7 and 10 LUFS, so I need more headroom from the get-go. So I'm going to highlight all the session stems, and I'm going to clip gain them down about 7, 8 dB here, and that should give me enough headroom. The first step is to start evaluating these tracks, and I like to color code my subgroups. So I'm just going to kind of grab a section here and begin listening and color coding and relabeling if I need to. So I like to color code drums purple. I won't judge you too harshly if you pick different colors, but for me it's purple, so I know when I see that color I'm dealing with something that is drums. Next step is we have the tracks labeled and color coded. Now we need to do the same thing for the song structure. Okay, so going through this part, I'm still in my edit brain, but I could hear that this is not going to be able to be a static mix. Not that any mix should really be a static mix, but there's going to need to be a lot of volume automation to bring out different components of the songs at different times. Like the end, there was a guitar solo that clearly sounded buried. The vocal is going to need to move forward. The vocal is going to need to be contextualized. My vision for hearing this It has that 80s pop rock kind of thing happening, but yet at the same point in time, it'd be fun to bring a little bit of a modern edge to that, maybe with a little bit of a grittier drum sound. So these are some things that we're playing with, but I think most importantly right now, it's not whatever it is I'm suggesting to do to the song, it's about having a plan. So before I touch a plugin, before I do anything, I'm formulating ideas as to what I need, which helps me understand who's going to occupy a lot of space in the mix, where I need to invest a lot of my resources in terms of applying processing. But I'm not done editing yet. The next step is going to be to go through, and if you look here, we're going to see that we have just a lot of dead space through tracks and stuff like this. So as we, are moving through a session, for me, this just becomes fatiguing on my eyes, and it makes it really tough to figure out if I'm listening to a particular section of the song, what instruments are in, and what instruments aren't if I just see color going all the way down. So I'm going to move through really quick, and I'm going to cut out all this just to have something cleaner visually. We know that our tracks are organized, we know that our session is organized, so we're in really good shape so that we can move fast and keep our mind in the creative frame of things once we get to that point. But we're still not quite done yet, at least through my process. And these are the little things that add up, like cleaning up your tracks, getting out any unwanted noise, any, pre-punching in on the guitar buzz or slides by accident, anything that's not intentional. It just frees up the sonic space for the instruments that are supposed to be in the part. And again, it's sculpting. So you see the image inside the block of ice or the block of marble, and you begin just cutting away. So with this, we don't want any unnecessary noise going on, any unnecessary buzz or anything, because we're probably going to put a lot of reverbs and delays on to kind of get that 80s feel. And if we have all this extra noise, it's only going to muddy up the track. It's always fun listening to things completely out of context. It's just madness. Okay, so now we have our tracks cleaned. Drums, bass, percussion, guitar, keys, little effects, and now it's vocals. So I'm gonna kind of listen to the lead vocal and solo. I do like to go through and trim out a lot of dead space. The only time I don't is if it's a really delicate part and it was recorded, say, through a pretty heavy analog chain that might have some ground floor coming through, so maybe a little bit of hiss, and chopping it, you hear that, like, from like what we don't really hear is silence to dead silence, and it can sound a little awkward. My ear catches it, and I don't like when I hear it. So a lot of times I will keep that low ground floor noise in very delicate parts, but this arrangement is so dense and the vocals completely buried that I can get away with kind of getting out anything that shouldn't be in there, especially big breaths, because if we do heavily compress, those breaths are going to come up. Maybe tame any sibilance that we might hear, and strip away, if there's any bleed from in between, lines that are delivered. Sometimes the tape is left running and you could hear, little foot tapping or humming along with the music, coughs, breathing, anything like that, I'll remove out. So take a quick listen here. And here we go. So you can hear all this. Little lip smacking, headphone bleed. We know from what we've heard so far, that part has a lot of stuff happening. So getting this out, once again, every little bit helps, in my opinion. I need a new promise, brand. Okay, and the editing begins. As I just threw an elbow to the microphone. Sorry about that, Mike. So the way I'm going to start doing this is I'm going to find the most dense spot of the song, which looks like it's probably in this hook outro jam area where we have the vocal going, we have backing vocals in, guitars, all the guitars that are in the song. All right, so here we go. Static mix time. This track, drums, it kind of reminds me of that 80s overdub thing. It's actually leaning left. So I'm gonna pull the left channel a little more center to get that snare kind of generally in the middle. Now again, this is an artistic choice for me. I like my snare centered. There's 2 snare drums in the track, and having one center, then one kind of sailing over to the left, and the toms, like, it's not working for me. Now, again, could send the whole mix over, love the mix, and artists be like, where happened to that snare? It was more in my left ear when I'm listening to headphones. And we go back and just change pan pot. But I'm gonna do what works for me right now. And having this drum overdub, that's gonna be, I think, the big feature for me when it comes to mixing this. I want that to feel big and like larger than life and spread out and powerful. So getting the right balance now between that, this great bass line, and then where the actual kick and snare feed into that is what this balancing kind of thought process is. So for now, that is a static mix that will work. So we are going to print that into the session. Awesome. So we have our rough mix printed in. Time to grab a coffee. And what I was doing as it was playing was I was just taking some notes for where I want to bring the mix. And some of the notes that I took were, first, to decide who is the low-end foundational component. And I'm going to start by trying to make the bass drum sit underneath the bass guitar, because I want that bass guitar to feel really wide, very 80s, and leave a big pocket in the center for the vocal, which I want to have a lot of effect on it in order to have it have that larger than life presence. I also know that I want to make sure I'm doing a good job featuring that static voiceover in the middle, and then the section where the percussion, which sounds like bells, comes in, to really make them have a special spot in a song and make it feel like a featured moment. The other thing is, when the guitar solo comes in at the end, really making sure the song hits a very high emotional crest at that spot. So thinking about the song all along, editing, and now hearing the rough, I have a general idea of where I want to take it. I'd like to add some harmonic content to the pianos that are there, so they really kind of lift up out of the mix a little bit, and that everything feels, you know, very like we're on a very wide and open sound stage. So that's really where we're gonna kind of start taking this mix. So to summarize, what we really want to do is we want to have a very clean and visually appealing session to start with that helps us also kind of get the lay of the land as to what each instrument is doing in the song, and that helps us to formulate a plan for a mix. So before we even get to mixing, we should have a session that all of our instrument groups are color-coded, properly routed, the song itself properly labeled, and a good idea on where we want to take this mix. That way, whether we open up the session in a week or in 5 years, at any point in time, it's very easy to understand from a visual perspective. And then from this point on, we're able to do nothing but make creative decisions. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video where we actually get into the mixing process. Till then, take care.